What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA Show. I'm back with myself and, of course, Justin, Guitar Hero James. And yeah, Justin, how's it life and how's training?
Man, training's going good right now. Mads Burnell, he's ranked number 3 in Bellator, transferring over, moving over to the PFL to be a part of the PFL tournament. Asked me to be one of his main training partners, man. So I've been getting in really good work with a very, very high-level striker, high-level grappler each day. So, got my rounds in with Mads. It's a good day, man. Getting better every day. So as long as we're moving forward, we're not stagnant. Let's go.
Awesome. All right, so there's a lot of crazy things that are going on in the fight world. Some stuff that happened this weekend that I want to talk to you about. Two of those things is that Ortega fight. Man, amazing fight, I thought. And Cejudo's calling out Brendan Moreno, which we're going to talk about last on the show today. But first things first, this is the topic that I got listed up here. Man, what a fight. Brian Ortega, I think it was something crazy. Like, I think he's 1-3 for his last 4 fights. I think the last guy he beat was Korean Zombie, and then he's had so many injuries after injuries after injury. And just to set the stage for those of you guys who didn't watch the fight, I mean, this is like a story. I don't even know what to say. He comes out after dealing with all these injuries. He's loosening up, warming up in the cage, and it's broadcast live while they're introducing, I think, Yair. He jumps up and he rolls his ankle and he injures himself and he couldn't walk properly. And everybody saw it, and the announcers were talking about it, and he went in and he still won. I mean, this is crazy. What a fight. He's 33. And he just came out and showed out, and I thought it was unbelievable. So I wanted to turn over to you first to get your first thoughts on. I know you've dealt with all fighters deal with injuries. You've dealt with injuries. What is your take on what we saw here?
Man, what a dog. I really wasn't sure how Ortega was going to answer the bell, 1-3 in his last 4. I thought Yair was going to push through him. He has the momentum going. I know he just fought for the championship. But Brian Ortega is still a live fighter right now. Like I said, prior to the fight, I was unsure how he was going to perform, if he was going to come through and go through the motions. But, man, talking about adversity, jumping up in the air, rolling his ankle. And actually, on my 3rd amateur fight, I did something familiar. I had a bad sprain, jumped up in the air as I was warming up, rolled the ankle, and man, subconsciously that ate at me. I didn't really feel it till after the fight, but the fight only lasted a couple minutes. We're talking about Brian Ortega going over 10 minutes with this leading injury, man. Taking an ass whoop in the first round, coming back in the second round, finishing in the 3rd round. This guy has the heart of a lion, and I'm reinvented as a Brian Ortega fan, man. And I know I keep saying that each week. We see these older fighters, 33 years old. He's not at the end of his career, but 33 is starting to get up there, especially when you're fighting at the top of the top, man. And I wasn't sure, again, how he was going to be mentally, how he was going to be physically. But again, came in with the heart, came in with the mindset that he's going to win this fight, and sure as shit finishes with submission in the 3rd round.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about, I mean, the whole thing is wild to me. He almost got finished in the first round, then he comes out, and it did kind of look like Yair was not lighting him up with kicks like he did with Volkanovski. I feel like Yair really was able to use his weapons more effectively, and I think part of that, but I wanted to get your expert opinion. I think part of that was the way that Brian Ortega pressured Yair Rodriguez and came at him with some pretty good boxing, or at least some aggressive striking. I mean, what were your thoughts? Do you feel like he neutralized Yair better than Volkanovski, or what was the key to how he dismantled him?
Honestly, I think it was pressure and gas tank. That first round, Rodriguez came out throwing a lot of shots again, like you said, almost finishing Ortega. I mean, when you throw the kitchen sink at somebody and they're still standing going into the second round, still standing going into the 3rd round after an ankle injury, that's really demoralizing on a fighter. And there's been a lot of guys that I've trained, a lot of guys that I've worked with that are like, fuck, man, I've hit this guy with everything. I don't know what else to do. And I mean, the easy answer is, oh, well, just keep doing what you're doing. But when you're putting in that much volume and that much pressure, if you don't have the gas tank to go 15 minutes and not, and, Ortega had the gas tank, he started pressuring Rodriguez, pushing him back towards the second, really applying that pressure, really testing the gas tank of Rodriguez. Ortega did, and at the end of the day, it finds a submission late in the round when the gas tank's depleted.
What a submission too. And he had, I think it was a Darce. He had that in so tight. And then Mark Goddard was telling him to get off. He didn't release it. He explained why, by the way. It wasn't malicious. He's actually, he likes Yair Rodriguez. Apparently they're friends. And he did say that made it difficult to fight him, or a little bit difficult to fight him. but his eardrums were blown out for, I can't remember what the reason was, but he literally couldn't hear anything. So he had the choke in super tight, and it took him a couple times to kind of register, hey, I need to let him go. But anyways, what a phenomenal fight. And I'm so happy for Brian Ortega. I think a lot of people have been counting him out, because of all the injuries and everything he's been through personally as well. What do you see next for him? Does this put him at the front of the line potentially for a fight against Ilya, or where do you see him going?
I think he needs another win. I need a high-level win. I mean, beating Yair Rodriguez was incredible, but again, he still has a losing record in his last 5 fights. It's hard to argue somebody, what is he, 2-3 in his last 5 now?
Yeah,
It's
two
hard
and
to
three.
argue title contention over that, man. And again, Brian looked great. He looked, again, I counted him out, man. He's getting all that good on the side. Halle Berry, as Tracy Arquez. But I know you laugh, and whenever I say this, everyone laughs. But these are real mind fucks, guys. Like,
Mm.
women play such an important part, whether they can break you or build you, man. So when you're getting, the most beautiful women in the world consistently, like, where is your mind? Are you really focused? And Brian
Mm.
Ortega was focused. He came out, survived the onslaught in the first round, and did what he had to do to get the submission in the third round. So I think he's reinvented. I think 1 or 2 more wins. I'd like to see him, 4-3, on 3 or 4 fight win streak before he gets in. I don't think he's in title contention. Again, he has a losing record in his last 5 fights. That just doesn't speak championship fight to me. Like I said, I think he needs to win 2 or 3 more, at least 1 more to be 500. 3-3 in his last 6. To even talk about a belt right now. Can you imagine? Oh, here's your champion. He's 3-3 in his last fights. I don't think it's enough. Not to mention, I think Topuria is a different beast than Rodriguez.
Who would you want to see him go against?
Man, Volk.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I was just thinking a rematch against Volk. He almost finished
Volk has lost 3 in a row. He's lost to Makhachev twice. He just lost to Topuria. Why not?
I was just thinking that. That's a great fight. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people would agree with us, but I actually think that would be awesome. Let him have a rematch. They were on The Ultimate Fighter together. Brian Ortega almost finished him. He does seem reborn, and he's married now. He talked about that. He said he wouldn't go into details, but he said there was a lot of things in his personal life that he had to fix. Maybe that whole situation with his ex and maybe separating himself and now spending more time with his kids and his family. Like, he feels centered, grounded, and back on track to living the life he wants. But yeah, that'd be great. I think. I don't know. Let's see what the UFC thinks and what the public think. But I think that'd be a great fight.
Yeah, no, like I said, I agree with you, and I think it's the fight that makes sense. Again, 2-3 in his last. Volk's on a 3-fight losing streak right now. It's a fight that makes sense, and a lot of fans might not want to see it, but I think it's a great co-main, it's a great main event for a fight night. It'd be an incredible main event for a fight night. Be a great co-main for a big card, maybe right under the co, or even a main event, depending on who else is on the card. Anytime Volkanovski fights, I tune in. I don't care if it's a fight night. I don't care if it's a main event. I don't care if it's co-main. He's one of my favorite fighters, and Brian Ortega reinvented, man, looking as good as he did. Yeah, who knows, man? We'll see. And that's another reason to make that fight is both of these guys, again, they're experiencing losses. It's easier to lose the more you lose. And if Volkanovski can't beat an Ortega, we need to pull him out of the championship mix after losing. It would be 4 in a row if he lost to Ortega.
That's fair. Okay, well, let's see what happens. I would be super excited for that fight. I think that'd be a great matchup. And obviously, if Ortega wins, 100%, that would make sense for a title shot. Okay, let's move on because it's crazy. I kind of forget, but we are right around the corner for UFC 299. It's a week from Saturday. I can't even believe it. I still think it's like 3-4 weeks away. It's here. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about O'Malley versus Chito. Let's preview this. What are your initial thoughts on this matchup, and how do you see it going?
I'm really excited to talk about this. Me and Aljamain Sterling just sat down and talked about this for about 15 minutes the other day.
Okay.
Chito is very, and these are Aljo's words, not mine. Chito's very unorthodox. He mixes it up. He's very, very tough. And when it's hard to fight when you're a straight down the line fighter like O'Malley. When he throws the straight jab, his straight cross, his cross is his money shot. You know, when you fight someone that's unorthodox like Chito, mixing in his kicks, mixing in his unorthodox striking, mixing in his pressure wrestling, this is what's going to make it hard for Chito. And you know, if Chito can stay away from his straight cross, if Chito can apply pressure and really chop his legs up like he did the first time around, I mean, I could, you know, Chito is probably going to be the dog in this fight, but I could see Chito getting away with his hand raised here.
Man. And do you see it by a decision, or do you see it by, you know, how do you see that coming together?
You know, it could. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, really, it could be by anything. I don't see it coming by way of knockout. I think that I don't think Chito will be able to knock out O'Malley. I think if O'Malley wins, you know, he's going to land one of those straight crosses. That's the problem. Chito's going to be pressuring O'Malley a lot, which in turn, Sean's going to be fading back, bang, cross. And unfortunately for Chito, at any time that cross could come, and it's such a fast strike, it's such a powerful strike. You know, Sean can put people out in the first round, second round, or the third round. And again, with Chito's style, you know, with him coming in, pressuring into O'Malley, he's susceptible to that. But if Chito can use his wrestling, take O'Malley down, get on top, I could see this fight being finished by TKO or submission by Chito Vera.
It's a very strange one. I just looked up the odds because I want to see for myself, because it does feel like Sean O'Malley and others are almost counting Chito Marlon Vera out a little bit, in that, hey, what's going to be next for Sean O'Malley? He wants to fight Ilia Topuria, or is he going to fight Merab, right? That's the question. Nobody's really even talking about, well, what if Chito wins? But the odds are pretty close. He's only minus 218. I mean, it's not like a huge
Chito's minus 218.
No, Sean O'Malley. Yeah.
I mean, dude, there's huge value in that. What does that put Chito at?
Plus 180. Plus 180.
Yeah, I mean, there's great value in that line. Chito's again already beat him once. He's already found
Yes.
You know, the equation to beat him. Now, to do it twice in a row is going to be tough. Fighting a very tough fighter like Sean O'Malley, especially when he has all this momentum behind him, he has all the hype, he has all the power. I mean, he's on cloud 9 right now to go in there and knock out Aljamain Sterling, which nobody thought, not me included, was going to happen. You know, great. I mean, he's on cloud 9 right now. It's going to be really hard to slow him down, but I mean, don't count Chito out. He's a good underdog. I think the line's going to swing even more in O'Malley's favor. You know, he might be a minus 250 at the end of this. As soon as Chito gets above plus 200, I'm putting some bread on it. I mean, again, do I think he's going to win? I don't know. I don't really necessarily think. Obviously, you know, you always think the favorite's going to win, or he's supposed to win. But in those 30% chances, those 40% chances, that's all you need to make this a profitable bet.
I do kind of want to see Sean O'Malley win, because I'm very curious about the Merab matchup between Sean O'Malley and Merab. Hopefully that's the fight they go for, not the Ilia Sean O'Malley fight. And you know, somebody was just talking about this on a video yesterday, the evolution of the sport. You know, there was a period of time where it was like the jiu-jitsu guys had the advantage, and the wrestlers kind of came in sprinkling in some jiu-jitsu, and then they had the advantage. Then the kickboxers came in with really good takedown offense, and that became the new thing. And they said now the most recent thing that seems to be implemented as a weapon is this cardio, this idea of cardio being weaponized, right? Colby Covington was one of the first people to do it. Merab is now doing it. So I think that's such an interesting combination and matchup with, obviously Merab's got tons of skills beyond just the cardio, but I think that'd be most notably what he has to his advantage. Sean O'Malley's got that precision striking, and we're going to see what happens. So I think that would be a very interesting fight. I am going to say that I'm leaning towards Sean O'Malley, and I'd like to see Sean O'Malley because I think that will be really, really fascinating. So anyways, can't wait for this matchup. So excited for it. And without further ado, we're moving on to something that is very interesting. Have you seen the Jackson podcast with Rampage Jackson?
I have not.
I got to tell you and anybody else who's listening, it's become one of my favorite shows. So he co-hosts Rampage is unbelievable as a podcaster, and I'll tell you why. He's got a co-host who kind of like drives a little bit more, let's say, right? What's amazing about Rampage is that he's able to really be himself. And I think that's the key for anybody, you know, when they're being interviewed or this and that. If you can just really let your true self kind of emerge and be free, that's when people can start connecting with you. And he just does such a good job. He asks really genuine questions. And I think obviously the fighters connect with him. Well, Tony Ferguson, as you know, barely does any interviews, but he sat down with them for an hour and 15 minutes. And it was such an amazing interview. Now, they came to the topic of, hey, should he retire, this and that? And Tony was like adamant. He's like, no way am I retiring. Absolutely not. I'm going to keep going. He said, I think specifically, I'm going to keep fighting until the wheels fall off. Dana White saw this comment And he's like, I don't know. I need to talk to him about it. I did hear about the interview, but I haven't talked to Tony yet, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, I know we've talked about Tony Ferguson. You always say how much you support him, and which makes a lot of sense, right? For fighters to go out on their own terms. This is how they're making money. This is their livelihood. This is his identity, and so he seems very adamant that he wants to keep going and keep going. Just want to turn it over to you for your thoughts once again on Tony Ferguson's mentality and mindset and his desire to keep going.
Yeah, man, I hate, I hate when people tell other people what they should do in their life, whether
Right.
it's out of good faith, whether it's out of whatever the reason is, or maybe they just think, dude, Tony Ferguson is a grown ass man that's been fighting his whole life. If the motherfucker wants to keep fighting, who am I or who are you to tell him, hey, man, it's not good for your health? Dude, we know it's not good for our health. The first fight, when you're training, essentially it is good for your health when you train and stuff, but you're taking damage, and Tony is taking a lot of damage. But dude, I support Tony Ferguson, man, and he knows the repercussions. It's not like he doesn't know what's happening to his brain. It's not like he doesn't know what CTE is. It's not like he doesn't know these things. Like, we all know these things, and at the end of the day, he's a grown ass man, and whatever he decides to do with his life, it doesn't affect me or anybody else. So this is one of the times where I'm gonna tell everyone to sit down, shut the fuck up, and you know what? If he ends up, severely brain damaged, that's his decision, and that's fine. I look at guys like Ronnie Coleman, man, and I saw the most incredible interview of Ronnie Coleman talking about when he should have quit, if he would have quit earlier. Do you know who Ronnie Coleman is?
No.
So he's one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. He is freaking huge. He is incredible, and he's not just a typical bodybuilder for looks. This guy lifted heavy ass weight. I'm talking about, he lifted such heavy weight. I'm not going to go into his injuries because I don't know exactly what they are. But now when he walks, he's either in a wheelchair, or he's in crutches, or he's on, like, the things that go around your forearms where you post to walk. I don't know
Yeah.
what they're called. Like a crutch of some. Yeah, that's Ronnie Coleman. And his body, obviously, this is how he looked in his prime, but now he can't walk, he can't lift, he can't do anything. And people always ask him, like, man, don't you wish you did something different? Ronnie Coleman said this in an interview. He said, the only thing I regret is not lifting heavier. Motherfucker can't walk, can't fucking do anything. And he says his only regret is not lifting heavier, man. Are you fucking serious? This guy, I mean, look, this is when he looked like in his prime. Look at him now. He's a small piece of a man compared to what he used to be. See if they have any updates of what he looks like now. Like, do a compare side by side, like, if there is any, or click like Ronnie Coleman today, or
Okay,
something like that. And he's a shell of himself, but he doesn't. Is there anything in there that?
Is this guy? This him probably?
Yeah, Ronnie. Yeah, let open it up. I can't. It's hard to see.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Let me see if I can get
blow
this.
that up.
Oh, shoot. These are still older photos, I think.
Regardless, the guy, you know what I mean? Like, his only regret, he knew lifting was going to kill his joints, kill his back, kill his knees. He knew that. And now he can't do anything anymore as one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. We're talking Arnold Schwarzenegger level. And his only regret is not lifting heavier weight. That's fucking, I mean, he's a man. He knew what the repercussions are. He's dealing with the repercussions, and his only regret is not. And Tony Ferguson, when he gets there, the only thing he's going to regret is not taking more fights. Yeah,
because
I feel it's the same mentality.
And I think I can kind of understand it in the same way when I look at my business, and like, I would never, you could fast forward me in the future and I would never look back and be like, man, I wish I would have done this or done this differently or worked less or spent what. I don't think like that. And I think that's why I can understand the mentality. You want to go for it as hard as you want to go. And you're the driver of your own ship. And I think that's what he wants. He wants to go on his own terms. By the way, he also mentioned that he had an injury. I think if I don't quote me on this, but I think he had a leg injury or something that was wrong with him going into that fight, which is another reason why he looked the way he did. And I think Tony's the last person to usually ever talk about this type of stuff, right? He's probably had so many issues going on that we don't even know that may have compromised his fighting ability. So anyways, for whatever it's worth, I do believe that he wants to keep fighting because he thinks he's still got something that he can show us, and more power to him. But yeah, anybody who hasn't checked out that interview, I encourage you to check it out. The Jackson Podcast, unbelievable. Love that show. Okay. Moving on to topic 4. By the way, we were supposed to talk about this on Friday. I don't want to talk about what happened, but some things happened that we couldn't do the show. It's a whole thing. been talking to Justin about it, obviously offline. But anyways, we're going to move on to your boy Jamal Hill. So we talked about this fight being announced for UFC 300. Some people are saying, not that it's not a good fight. People, I think, felt like this fight was going to happen at 301. Super excited for it. It's going to be an absolutely amazing fight. So that's undeniable. But I think people were thinking that a rabbit was going to be pulled out of a hat. Khabib coming back, Hamzat going, something crazy. So it's not that. It's a fight that we expected. Fine. But I think what a lot of the most interesting comments that I've heard about this fight are that he had a torn Achilles. That's a serious injury. And he's coming back in, what is it, like 2 months now to go and fight. What do you think about the timeline? Do you think he's going to be at full capacity? How do you think this might affect the outcome?
It could not, man. It's really just depends on how Jamal feels. He's been with us at Extreme Couture for the last couple weeks. He's been in there sparring. He's been in there, mixing it up with some of the best in the world. If Jamal Hill says he's ready, man. And you can't count this guy out. It's going to be a striking match. I really don't think Jamal's going to go in there and try and wrestle him. I think he's going to come and mix it, not mix, but I think he's just going to strike with pair to show that he is the best striker in the world. But, back to that injury, Western Mass client crapped his pants right before the stream was supposed to start.
Basically, actually.
It happens to the best of us, man. But back to Jamal, man. Jamal is a warrior, and maybe it's too soon. But if he doesn't think it doesn't really matter what we think, man. If he feels he's ready and he wants to, and even if he isn't ready, this is an incredible opportunity. We're talking UFC 300, the third century of the event number, man. This is a huge. I mean, they could call me to fight Khabib tomorrow, and obviously I'm not ready. But there's no question I'm not going to answer the bell, and I'm going to get in there and give it everything I have. And I think that's what Jamal's. Whether he's ready or not, he's going to be the best. And keep in mind, he has the best doctors on staff. He's in Vegas working the UFC PI on his rehab. When you're going to the PI like he is and like I have in the past with injuries, they let you know. Like, they're not going to let, their champion or a former champion jump in there not ready. They're going to make sure that he's ready to go come UFC 300.
That makes a lot of sense. Of course, you're right. I didn't even think about that. It's such a big event. They're going to take such good care of him. They're going to monitor him, and they probably made sure of all this before they announced the fight. That's a really good point. Okay, well, I'm super excited. Now, he has mentioned that he wants to stand with Alex Pereira. When somebody says that, when a fighter says that, hey, I'm going to stand and we're going to bang it out. Like, I think they talked about with the Wonder Boy fight against Kevin Holland. They're both made kind of a gentleman's agreement to stand. When you hear that, do you think that's actually going to be the case, or do you think that's a little gamesmanship? But what are your thoughts when you hear something like that?
I think Jamal Hill is honest to his word. I think Jamal Hill wants to show everybody in the world that he is a world-class striker, and I know he plans to knock out Alex. It's just the way it is. I mean, he could mix in his wrestling, maybe some feints, maybe put him up against the cage, try to grind on him a little bit, but I really think the primary game plan for Jamal is to strike, and it's not because that I think that's the best game plan in the world. I think he just wants to show the rest of the world that he is a world-class striker.
And I get that. And he is a world-class striker, and I can't wait to see it. I do hope he mixes it in because it's part of his skill set. He's a really well-rounded, complete fighter, as he always says. He's not a striker. He's a mixed martial artist. And why not use it to his advantage? But either way, can't wait for this fight. That's a great point about the Achilles injury in terms of where he's training right now, and they're taking care of him and whatnot. So cannot wait. This is like the UFC is on fire this year. And yeah, it's really, really fun. Okay, last topic for today. So I saw this on Henry Cejudo's channel this morning. You know me, I'm watching everything. Didn't watch the MMA hour today because it was all boxing, which obviously is not my thing. But Henry Cejudo on his channel called out Brendan Moreno. And if you guys who don't know this, Brendan Moreno lost to Brandon Royval this weekend, and it was a pretty definitive decision. Nobody really contested. I think Brandon Moreno thought he won, but nobody really thought that. So anyway, Cejudo gives this whole explanation as to why they should fight each other. One reason is they're both coming off losses. But the other reason is he brings up this whole story about when he had I can't remember who it was against. He was fighting somebody that Moreno was close with, and Moreno was close with Cejudo. And Moreno, this is according to Henry Cejudo, said, I'm not going to train with either of you guys. I love both of you, and I don't want to give either of you an advantage, whatever. Henry claims that he comes to find out that Moreno actually went and trained with the other guy. I'm gonna look it up as we're talking. I'm just blanking on the name. He goes and trains with this guy and goes back on his word. Again, this is what Cejudo said. I don't know if it's true. I don't even see Moreno really doing that. But so now he's saying, hey, we got unfinished business. It's personal, yada, yada, yada. That whole, thing that sometimes fighters like to play up. That whole is personal thing. So anyways, I want to throw it out to you. I don't know if you've heard this story, number one, but number two, how do you see these two? How do you see these two matching up?
I haven't heard this, but it sounds like Cejudo's trying to sell a fight. I don't know Brandon all that well, but the little bit I do know him, I can't see him going back on his word, trying to give somebody an advantage over somebody. It sounds like Cejudo, but I mean, even more importantly, can Cejudo still make 125? Like, he's old, man. That weight cut's going to be tough. Moreno's not going to go up to 135. Moreno's a small guy as it is. He's not a 35 pounder. He's really small. So, I mean, Cejudo is going to have to go back to 125 at 37 years old. I don't see that happening. There's a reason he went up in the weight. He talked about, when he fought Marlon Vera, a couple of years back, about how the weight cuts were sucking. Well, now it's been a couple of years, and, he's going to go back down to 125 to fight the former champ. I see it's a great matchup for Cejudo. I think Cejudo beats Moreno. I think his wrestling is just going to be too good, and he's going to be too big, too explosive. I mean, we're talking about a guy that out-wrestled Demetrius Johnson. And Moreno is a great fighter, and I'm a huge fan of him. I just don't think his skill set will be good enough, or his strength will be enough to handle Cejudo. But at the end of the day, if Cejudo misses weight, does Moreno take the fight?
Right. That's a good question. All great questions. By the way, I looked it up. I think the fight was against Joseph Benavidez. I don't know if that rings a bell in terms of Moreno being friends with both those guys, but I believe that was the fight. It was after the Demetrius Johnson fight. That's what Henry Cejudo was talking about in this video. So I don't know.
Crazy because Benavidez, it was all at Extreme Couture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Benavidez was training with us for a while. Joey is a good friend of mine, dude. We're talking about, man, when I made my UFC debut, he called me up personally and wished me a big congrats. This guy is an incredible leader. He's an incredible teammate, man. And, Moreno was training at Coutures for a while, so maybe they had crossed paths. But I wouldn't think it was intentional on either end. Joey B isn't a guy like that wants the inside information. We're talking about a true veteran that's been around for a long time. I mean, Brandon Moreno coming in, giving him a look Moreno, I don't understand what Moreno could tell Benavidez that he wouldn't already know. And it's not like Moreno's going to come in there and put a wrestling clinic on Joey. So again, to me, it sounds like Cejudo's trying to sell a fight, which I can appreciate. But I don't see him making 125 anytime soon.
Yeah, it just seemed like a little, if it's totally just fabricated, not totally fabricated, but it's kind of exaggerated, which is what my assumption was, because Brandon Moreno just doesn't seem to be that type of guy. He just seems to be really straight up. I think that type of fight building is kind of lame, but regardless of the actual background story or whatever, if he can make the weight, I do think it'd be an interesting fight. I'd like to watch it. They're both really big names, and it did make sense coming from the perspective of hey, they're both coming off a loss. So for whatever it's worth, I guess we'll see. But there's so many exciting things going on right now. It's so crazy. And I just want to say one last thing about this UFC 300 event. One of the things that I think is missing sometimes is the stakes, right? When we have fights that seem to be cool, but there's the stakes don't really add up or make sense. But with the UFC fight main event 300, Jamal Hill versus Pereira, the stakes are very, very high if you think about it. This is, if Alex Pereira can pull this off, I mean, man, this is going to cement him as, in my opinion, in one way, one of the greatest of all times, just in terms of the rate of his ascension and what he's accomplished in 2 weight classes. I mean, it's phenomenal. But imagine if Jamal Hill comes in and takes him out. There's going to be, which I do think is going to happen, but it's going to be a close fight. But imagine the amount of credibility that Jamal Hill is going to get. I think he doesn't get the credit that is owed to him. So the stakes are huge. That makes it a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, that is it. Those are the topics we had for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did like this video, make sure to click that like button. If you want to see more from our show, check in with us every Monday and Friday. Like I said, something weird happened last Friday. That's why I couldn't do it. It was, don't want to talk about it, but it was sucky. So anyways, thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you in the next episode. Take it easy.
All right. So